Today, we're getting into something that's both super fascinating and, honestly, pretty controversial in the science of aging. We're doing a deep dive into caloric restriction.
So let's just jump right in with a huge question. What if the secret to a dramatically longer life was, well, just eating less? And look, this isn't some new fad diet you saw online. Scientists have been obsessed with this question for almost 100 years, and the results from the lab have been, frankly, pretty mind-blowing. Let's see what they found.
Okay, so what are we talking about when we say caloric restriction? It means cutting your normal calorie intake by a pretty hefty amount, about 20 to 40%. But, and this is absolutely key, it is not starvation, not even close. It's a very specific method, often called CRON, which is just a way of saying calorie restriction with optimal nutrition. The idea is that every single calorie you do eat has to be a nutritional powerhouse, packed with everything your body needs.
So you gotta wonder, where did such a radical idea come from in the first place? Well, the evidence, the thing that got everyone so excited, starts in the animal kingdom, where the results have been just overwhelmingly consistent. And when I say the evidence is consistent, I mean it is staggering. From tiny, single-celled yeast all the way up the evolutionary ladder to more complex animals, the effect shows up again and again. It's like it taps into some ancient, deep-seated survival program that's been hardwired into life for millions and millions of years. Just look at the numbers here. The scale of this is wild. For something simple like yeast, you can literally double its lifespan. Double! And as you move up the complexity ladder to worms and fruit flies, you're still seeing these huge gains. We're talking 30, even 50%. Now, just for a second, imagine adding 50% to your lifespan. See why scientists got so excited? Okay, but the real showstopper, the data that made everyone sit up and pay attention, came from mice. A 36% longer life on average. That is massive. It's the equivalent of a human living well past 100, no problem. And here's the really important part. It wasn't just about living longer. It was about living healthier longer. These animals didn't just have a longer lifespan, they had a longer health span, pushing back diseases like cancer and heart disease. So, okay, the animal data, it's incredible. You can't argue with it. But mice aren't men, right? What happens when you try to take this out of the lab and apply it to actual human beings? Well, this is where that simple, beautiful promise gets really, really complicated. To get some real answers, scientists set up what's known as the calorie trial. And you need to know, this was the big one, the most rigorous, most serious human study on this topic ever done. We're talking a full-blown 2-year randomized controlled trial, that's the gold standard in science, with healthy, non-obese people put on a 25% restricted diet. And what they found, well, the good news was pretty darn good. The health benefits were just incredible, right across the board. Better insulin sensitivity? Check. Less inflammation, which we know drives aging? Check. Lower cholesterol? You bet. They even found it seemed to slow down the pace of aging right at the DNA level. I mean, these are all the exact markers you'd want to see for a healthier, longer life.
But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? Here's the catch. For all those amazing health markers, they didn't find the one thing everyone wants to know. Does it actually make you live longer? I mean, a 2-year study can't tell you that. You'd need to follow people for like 80 years, which is just about impossible. And on top of that, people just couldn't stick with it. Even in this super controlled experiment, it was just too hard for many of them to maintain.
And that leads us to this quote, which I think just nails the central problem here. You might add years to life, but you're subtracting life from years. Wow. That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The science might look good on paper, but the day-to-day reality of living this way, that's a whole different story.
I mean, let's get real about what this feels like. People who do this report a constant, gnawing hunger that just never leaves. You're always cold, even when it's warm. You're tired, and the social side of it, forget it. You can't just go out for a spontaneous dinner with friends or enjoy holidays the same way. It's mentally and physically draining, which begs the ultimate question. Even if it works, is it worth it? Is that really living? Okay, so if a lifetime of feeling hungry and cold isn't in the cards for most of us, and let's be honest, it's not, does that mean the whole idea is a bust? Not at all. This is where science is getting really clever, looking for smarter, not harder ways to get these benefits without all the misery. Let's look at some of the alternatives. And this table here lays out the options really nicely. You can see the different trade-offs. Instead of a massive 40% calorie cut, you've got things like intermittent fasting, which is way more doable for most people. It can kickstart some of the same cleanup processes in your cells, or even just a more moderate calorie reduction, maybe 10 or 15%, can give you some of those metabolic gains. It's all about finding a more sustainable, balanced approach.
And then you have the holy grail, right? The idea of caloric restriction in a pill. These are compounds called CR mimetics, and the whole point is to trick your body into thinking it's fasting, giving you the benefits without the constant hunger. Metformin is a big one here, a really common diabetes drug. But we have to be super clear. These are serious compounds, some with real side effects. This isn't something to mess around with on your own, and none of them are a perfect substitute for the real thing. Not yet, anyway.
All right, so we've looked at the incredible animal studies, the tricky human trials, and the smarter alternatives. Where does that leave us? What's the final verdict here?
You know, it really all boils down to this one huge trade-off, which this slide shows perfectly. On one side of the scale, you have the potential for more years, the promise of a longer quantity of life. But on the other, you have a proven, definite hit to your daily quality of life. It's the promise of science versus the tough, practical reality of being human.
And look, for most people, the answer isn't going to be extreme, lifelong restriction. The real lesson here might be in the principles behind it. Eat real, nutrient-packed food, avoid chronic overeating, and be mindful. Because the goal isn't just to live longer, right? It's to live well for longer. The science points us in a direction, but ultimately you have to ask yourself, what's the right balance for me?